My gosh, is she gonna marry Belgrieve? Is this gonna be one of those shows where the not blood related daughter father thing and ends up in relationship? I just have a feeling that's the direction it's gonna go. Every now and then a series comes across that I want to like. I really try to like, but unfortunately, My Daughter Left the Nest and Return an S Rank Adventurer is one such series that I don't think is going to correct itself for me. I just don't think it's going to work. It has promise here. It's got a lot of great things within it, but at the same time, I think the way that it's being presented, the way it's playing out is just, it's too damn repetitive. It is just unfortunately too repetitive, but this is my thoughts after the first 3 episodes, and it's probably going to be my first drop of the season so far, but let's jump into it. We kick things off with this ex-adventurer, this guy Belgrieve, and he was adventurer for a long time, very successful, known as the Red Ogre, and at some point he gets injured while he's fighting this one monster. He goes and lives in this remote village, where at some point he's in the forest and he runs into an infant. He notes very quickly that the child has been placed upon a seal, so it wasn't that as if the thing was kind of oops, left there. It's the child that was left there on purpose, and so he decides to take care of this child, raise her as his own child. Well, this child grows up and kind of follows in his footsteps, decides to become an adventurer, and leaves at the age of 12 to go out venturing. She has a strong desire, just like him, to protect others. Well, very quickly, she becomes an S rank, and she's very well known, she's very powerful, everybody just loves her. The guild especially really loves her because they can put her to work a lot. Well, eventually we kind of find that she really badly just wants to go back home and see her father. Yes, Angeline really loves her father so badly. Like every time she's talking to somebody, all she wants to talk about is her father. But unfortunately, they're kind of overworked. The Adventure Guild doesn't have enough people, and there's way too many monsters around. They have to keep putting her to work. Every chance that she gets that she can actually take some time off, they pull her back in and send her to another job. And this really frustrates her, enough that she's just constantly yelling at the guild leader to bring in more people, bring back some retirees, some old adventurers, just bring them back in the business, and that way I can take some time off. And even when she does finally get some time off and she's trying to travel back to her home, she ends up bumping into a noblewoman from the Bordeaux family, saves her, finds out that her father is really ill, and so she decides to, I guess, put off going to see my father and take her back to her home so that she can see her dying father. Well, as time goes on, the monsters themselves start to increase to the point where finally they discover the origins of all the monsters. They believe that it is the rebirth of a demon king, and so they go there, they break down the barrier, they bring some old veterans along with them, they take down the monsters inside of it, and eventually Angeline takes out the demon king within it, finally allowing her to finally go home. Spoiler, finally, she gets to go home and finally see her father. And while this is all playing out, we also get perspective of Belgrieve, her father. He's again living in this old remote village, taking care of the people there, while at the same time he's training the children in survival and swordsmanship. And every now and then he receives letters from Angeline, hears stories of her successes. Pretty much every daughter of the Bordeaux family comes by and visits him, give him the rewards that Angeline had rejected and told them to just give it to him. Even the Countess of the Bordeaux family comes by and tries to force Belgrieve to join their family because she knows that he trained Angeline. Just a lot of the stories and whatnot come to reach his ears, and he's very proud of his daughter. And at the same time, you get a lot of the doubts that he has compared to his daughter, and the idea that he's a quitter because he got injured, lost his leg, and left his job. But that all leads to my thoughts on My Daughter Left the Nest and Returned an S-Rank Adventurer. I'm really wondering if this show is going to turn out to be one of those types of shows where you have the age gap, that it's kind of related to the aspect of being father-daughter that eventually leads to a relationship, because it already feels like Angeline is massively obsessed with Belgrieve, and with the concept of him technically not being her blood-related father, kind of leads me to believe that there's probably going to be a relationship here. And I honestly was kind of pushing it from my head over time because I felt like the series was very wholesome as it went along. This idea of the father being very proud of his daughter, a lot of these memories of him raising her, how much she really does adore him. But at some point, I think it was about the point that she finally returns home, you have this kind of inner conflict that Angeline's having about, but what if I'm holding him back? But what if he doesn't really care about me? And I'm like, you're getting a lot of those kind of trope storylines being thrown into this character's mind right now that usually relate to relationships. And so I'm like, they might actually be going that direction. This story might actually be going that direction where Angeline falls in love with her father. And I wouldn't put past anime. We do this way too many times. I'm not going to name the shows because I think we throw that around too much and it pretty much spoils some of them. A certain rabbit show, I'll just say a certain rabbit show that, yeah, it kind of has the sense there. I really do feel like that's probably the direction it'll eventually go. And I think, again, it's because they're not technically blood related. And additionally, it does feel like they're already kind of being a little obvious here that she's probably either the Demon Lord himself or possibly related in some way to the Demon Lord. I have no doubts this idea this girl just randomly pops up out of nowhere in the middle of a forest and she's super OP is probably because he's somehow related. They show very briefly this person that was planting these Demon Kings, or at least came by to pick up the Demon King after it was defeated. And I'm assuming that is probably somebody that's related to her as well. And so we'll probably find out that he's actually her brother or something like that. I already kind of feel a lot of the storylines already kind of playing out in my head. And I could be completely off, but it kind of feels like one of those series where it's not trying too hard to stray from the usual and stray too much from something that's going to be very typical. And that's where I kind of get my frustrations. My first frustration is, yes, Angeline, I really felt from the PVs that Angeline was just going to be really, really annoying because all she's doing is screaming and her attitude's always angry. But she's not that bad. Like, when I actually watched the show, she wasn't that bad. Now, I wasn't enjoying my time around Angeline, but it wasn't because of that. The reason why I haven't been enjoying the show overall is just because every time it shows Angeline, all she's doing is talking about her father and how badly she wants to see her father. And now she hates the fact that she has to work so much because she wants to see her father. And at some point, it's like, wow, we're doing 2 full episodes of this. And then whenever it jumped over to Belgrave, which was probably the only part that I was actually enjoying, this idea of this ex-adventurer that's just enjoying his slow life and, yes, worried about his daughter. And, yes, his own insecurities about his strength and how good he is, despite the fact that all signs seem to point that this guy is extremely powerful, even though he's, I think, only an E rank. He seems to have enough power to be an S rank, but that probably is because his adventuring time was cut short because he lost his leg. But even still, a lot of the stuff around Belgrave was essentially people coming to say how great Angeline was. How many times we had to meet members of the Bordeaux family that have to show up and give him money and say how great he is, or show up and claim that they want to drag him over to their estate and he has to be OP with them. It's just, at some point, it's like, are we going to do anything with this show? Or is it just going to be basically girl wants to come home and he really badly thinks that his daughter is great and everybody wants to shower him with praise for how great his daughter is? It, at some point, just gets very repetitive. The only positive sign was episode 3. Because finally in episode 3, we have Angeline actually think about something besides her father. Like, again, first 2 episodes, nothing but her thinking about her father. And this is after 5 years of being independent and doing her own thing. She literally spent 5 years working for the Adventure Guild, getting a party and everything, but yet has no thoughts or desires of her own. Now, granted, you can claim that's because she's been overworked as the guild, and that she's getting sick of it. And yes, that technically comes from having a job that you literally spend all of your time doing, is that you just have no hobbies or desires of your own. But still, think of something else. Have some friends. Have something that you've kind of established there besides, I want to go see dad. Like, it's a very miserable life that she's been going through if that's all she's been doing. But again, I'll give it credit to the idea that it's just being overworked. But again, episode 3 was very refreshing. The idea that finally she's thinking about, okay, here's the mission that we have. Here's the people that my party members know. Here's some other stuff that I'm thinking about. Taking down this Demon King. All this other stuff that she's actually thinking about besides just going home. And then having it kind of cap in with the idea that she finally, voices her desire that she actually does want to protect the people. Like, she could go anywhere else, especially as an S rank. She could probably be extremely successful somewhere else and probably less worked. But she desires to protect this place. This is the place that she wants to protect. It is something that, again, Belgrave has kind of instilled upon her, this, because yes, he himself can go anywhere. The Bordeaux family wants to hire him. He could probably get paid a ton, but he wants to stay in this remote village because they need him and he desires to protect them. Angeline has kind of the same mindset. It's been kind of instilled upon her, and that is kind of sweet. But at the same time, it doesn't make up for, again, 2/3 more of the series just kind of being blah. So again, I really did desire to enjoy this series. It's just, it's not doing anything for me. And despite the fact that I had my initial fears of Angeline being loud and annoying, despite the fact that she has a Seiyu that most everybody out there that I know probably adores, it's the same Seiyu that is Yor, I don't think it has enough in here, or at least it hasn't presented me with the idea that it has enough here to really keep going. Plus, it's not a very good-looking show. I mean, when it gets around to Angeline, close-ups, and the silliness, they do really well. And I really like Belgrave's design itself. He's very, very rough-looking. I like that kind of different take on a character design rather than it just be nothing but high schoolers. But overall, the show isn't that good-looking. The action scenes are very blah, a lot of stills, a lot of just kind of action shots with characters with wiggly lines around them. It's not a great looking show. Anyways, I'm not going to beat the dead horse at this point. Again, not really feeling this show as much as I really wanted to enjoy it, and that's unfortunate, but not every show is going to be for every person, and hopefully there's a lot of people out there that is really enjoying this show. I know that it's got a lot of wholesome vibes in there that I think a lot of people enjoy. It's got a little bit more of that feel of, again, the retired adventurer, the slow life after adventuring kind of stuff, which is good. And like I said, I ultimately early on was drawn to that, this idea of, you know, the family and the time after adventuring, which I'm sure it's probably going to go away as well. I'm gonna throw out a theory here. I'm gonna throw out another assumption that's what's gonna happen is with everybody being pulled out of retirement, yes, Belgrave is probably gonna get pulled out of retirement. I have no doubts that once Angeline goes back to work, they're going to drag Belgrave back into the whole thing. I think even she mentioned the idea of pulling her father back in so she could see him in his prime and killing things and stuff like that. So it'll probably be father-daughter party going out and defeating the Demon Lord or something like that. So a lot of that slow life stuff's probably going to disappear anyways, but that's my thoughts. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below, comment, let me know if you think of the series, if you're going to be checking it out. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you got my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more and you like this content, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, membership button down below. Greatly appreciate everybody it does, and y'all take care.